This is Take a Cue, episode 40.
Whoa.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey there, music educators. Welcome to season 3 of Take a Cue, the podcast that hits all the right notes when talking about teaching band in elementary, middle, and high schools. I'm Jen Wise.
And I'm Erik. Together, we've got 40 years of experience in New Jersey public schools, and we're here to share our passion, our insights, and a few laughs along the way.
Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned professional, Take a Cue is your backstage pass to inspiring your students, navigating the highs and lows of band directing, and making every rehearsal count.
From innovative teaching strategies to the best ways to handle those tricky moments, we've got tips, stories, and expert advice to keep you motivated and make your program shine.
If you're enjoying what you hear, please remember to give us a 5-star rating and leave a review on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback helps us bring more great content your way.
And let's keep the conversation going. You can interact with us and stay updated on all things Take a Cue by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We're at Take a Cue Podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts, answer your questions, and see how you're applying our tips in your classroom.
So grab your baton, tune up those instruments, and join us as we dive into the world of band directing with a fresh perspective and a lot of enthusiasm.
Get ready to take your teaching to the next level. This is Take a Cue. Jen, this is a fun episode today. But before we get into it, I want to hear how things are going.
This was a fun episode, and things are going pretty well by me. Let's see, TJ is officially 4. We had his 4th birthday party, and that was super fun.
Happy birthday, TJ!
Yay.
I know sometimes he listens.
I know. Oh, he does. He does in the car. Oh, yeah. So that was a big highlight. Last month, and now onward and upward, picture day, swim lessons. We're getting into maybe some basketball at the YMCA. We'll have to see. It should be fun. Band's off to a good start. First morning rehearsals happening, and things are rolling. It's
awesome.
Oktoberfest season, and Tom's out there playing all the polkas, polka medley number 1, 2, and 3, So, he sounds great. They're playing all over the place here in North Jersey. So that's been fun. So, yeah. How about you?
Awesome.
What are you up to?
Oh, just kind of taking it one day at a time here. The girls are in their stuff. Maggie's doing cross country for her school. Kate is taking swimming lessons at the YMCA. Awesome. And doing great. She loves being in the water. This summer, she transformed into a swimmer.
Cool.
Just from being at the pool every day. And now she jumps in, and her teacher was like, is this the same person as last year?
Cool.
But yeah, she's loving it. And the kids are doing well. Cindy's, getting started with the school year, and I'm back with the 8th grade band. Lessons are started up. The band is doing well for September, and that's kind of all I got going on. Just kind of, figuring out how to get everybody everywhere, how to drive everybody where they need to go.
Yeah, that's a lot. We got a lot to balance this time of year. So
yes, we do.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, you know how it is.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I can't say that a little cash in the bank wouldn't help. So because we're still in summer recovery mode after even though it's October now, we are still in summer recovery mode. We're on that 10-month pay schedule. So So I'm happy we're talking about finances today, Erik.
It's a really good thing. And I know, especially for some of our listeners who might be new to teaching, just starting out, or maybe some of our listeners who aren't, but want to get better with their money. I think we had a great episode today,
definitely.
talking about all of the different things that, frankly, I wish I would have known when I was 21. 22, starting out. I loved some of the examples that you were giving, and found that you have a really great way of framing some of the ideas that we were talking about today, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah. And the guys, you're going to get a lot out of this episode. It's not just like, oh, here's how you make it through the month as a teacher, and it's like, we're going to talk about planning for your future. We're going to talk about ensuring the things in your life that are important to you. And we're going to talk about, squirreling that your hard-earned money away in places that are going to work for you, not just, not just, oh, I'm saving this. It's like I'm saving this and it's going to grow. So
ready?
I think I'm ready. I think my wallet can use a little reboot. So let's do this.
All right. Listeners, prepare to get rich.
Oh yeah. Relatively.
3, 2, 1.
Here you go.
So Erik, I like money.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, Jen. I like money too. I like what money can do in our lives, for sure. Though I think probably most teachers probably don't get into teaching thinking that I'm going to do this so I'm going to get rich.
Yeah, that's probably true. And we could be comfortable, but
Yes.
rich, I don't think is really, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that it certainly can be a really satisfying career. And certainly can provide some monetary comfort and some stability, especially if you're in a state that has a decent pension system. That certainly can, be helpful. But I don't think anybody gets into it to be, to become super rich.
No. Yeah.
But I'm glad we did. I'm glad I'm glad I made that choice, and I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, me too. And I'm happy that we're going to get to talk through, kind of just what we've been through since we started financially and how we, kind of got to where we are. And
this is something I think that for our listeners, this topic was sort of born out of something that I put together for my student teachers about things that I've learned over the last 2 decades regarding money and finances when it comes to teaching. And I think we kind of just ran with it when we created our show notes for today's show.
Erik, when you got into teaching, what was your starting pay like? What was it like for you?
In 2002 in New Jersey, I was making a whopping $37,500 per year.
Okay.
And it was, at the time, it was okay. And that was step 1 on our salary guide with bachelor's, and that was it. No extra masters, no extra college credit or anything like that. But it was certainly enough to be able to afford a 1-bedroom apartment and still be able to buy food. So that was a good thing. Now, what about you, Jen? How are things starting off with you?
I clocked in the fall of 2008 with $47,000 on
Whoa.
step 1. I know, big one, right? I did have some advanced credits coming in, so I got a little credit for that. Funny story. I finished my first day of teaching and got a call on my cell from the union president, and she was like, "So the superintendent, offered you a step that doesn't exist. We don't offer, BA plus 15 or whatever it was anymore." And I was like, "But that's the contract I signed." And she was like, "I'm so glad you said that. I'm going to fight for you." So I got that pay for about a year. And then they bumped me back to the BA step. I made a little bit more each year. And then once we started contributing more to our healthcare, I was making less for about 5 years. And that got weird.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And that's something that my colleagues and I have talked about, Jen, is that when a bunch of us started around the same time, some of us actually started the same year, though in different districts in New Jersey, we talked about how when we started, healthcare was included.
Right.
That was part of your pay, and you didn't have any premium sharing or anything like that. So I think that did keep some of those salaries a little bit lower in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Now that's a different situation.
But it did impact how I, looked at my finances
Of course.
and everything.
So when you were starting out teaching, were you thinking a lot about retirement at that time?
On some days. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I really wasn't. I didn't even really give the guy in the faculty room talking about 403Bs and all that the time of day until like my 4th or 5th year. I really didn't put much away. I really didn't. How about you?
I was not thinking about it at all.
Yep.
I was just happy to be able to have a job, and I lived at home for all of 1 year before I went out and got an apartment. And I kind of was looking back, like I was eager to move out. I guess it was probably to like prove to myself that I was successful, or maybe prove to other people that I was successful and could do it. So moving out like after the first year, if I had to do it again, I would totally just live at home for a few years and sock away all that money.
Yeah.
For a couple of years.
A lot of our colleagues are starting out that way now, and keep at it. Keep at it. I was home for a year. It may not seem like the thing you want to do, but oh my gosh, if you're able to not spend all that money, right,
and kind of either save it, put it away and invest it, or something like that.
Or put it right back into degree advancement or something. Sure. It's really, that's kind of what I did. So I stayed home my first year. Really glad I did. I had, I think it was episode 3, we talked about, some of my health issues with my MS and everything. I was really happy I was at home for that. Yeah. And I did end up moving out the next year because I kind of had like a 50-minute commute. And once you put traffic on top of that, it was tough. So I felt like I was ready. And then the following summer, I started credits for my master's. I did 12 credits, and sure. My employer covered about half of that. So that was pretty great. And now, but our listeners definitely know that I finished that same master's last year. So I ended up sitting on those credits for quite a while. So I got many credits right away, like 36, 32 or something in 3 summers, and then sat on it a while. So yeah.
When did you decide that you were going to start saving or investing for retirement? Not just for an emergency fund, but really looking forward decades in the future.
Year 4 or 5, right around when Tom and I got engaged. And he was starting to move down here to New Jersey, and we were starting to share certain things in our finances. We moved in together, and I was like, oh, okay, we're sharing this, we're sharing that. I really should start looking out for myself in retirement. So I started an account with, one of the reps that comes to the teacher's room, and I'm sure we'll circle back and talk about that.
Oh yes, we've got a whole part lined up today about those folks. So.
I was not really happy with the growth after a few years in that account. So I ended up moving it to an IRA, and that seemed to work a little better. So
what were you putting aside every month or every paycheck?
About $200 a paycheck. So
wow, that's great.
I felt like I had to catch up because I had been teaching, half a decade, and it doesn't seem like much now because at almost 20 years in, you're just like, 5 years, I'll make it up somewhere. But
in your 20s, that can make a big difference by the time you're retirement age.
Yeah. So I obviously I say per paycheck because I wasn't contributing anything when I wasn't working, and I'm still kind of doing that because summers get tight. I don't know if that's going to end up on our list today, but budgeting for the summer.
We need to talk. Yeah, we should definitely talk about that. No question.
But I don't. And if my financial person's listening, I'm so sorry, Matt. But I'm not contributing to my retirement in the summer usually. I'm really only doing that when I'm working. So
sure. I mean, hey Jen, you want to know how much I was investing?
Yeah, tell me about it.
When I started, I was investing $50 a month, not per paycheck.
Okay.
A month.
Okay.
Because that's what I thought was necessary at the time.
All right.
So at $200 a paycheck, you're doing all right there. I think.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. But things changed, and kids and different things, and it didn't. It just didn't seem like I said, I wasn't seeing as much growth in that account as I was hoping for after being, taking care of it for a few years. So we ended up making some changes. So yeah.
We'll talk about the 403Bs and things like that in a little bit, and some things that I've learned about 403Bs and that we might have learned over time. But when you were starting out, did you have any debt or anything like that? How was your spending? How did things go like in your, when you first started out teaching?
Yeah, I was very lucky that my parents were able to take care of college. I worked summers for, gas and spending money and drum corps and that I kind of paid my way on mostly. But no, I was very lucky that my parents took care of my college bills. So
Okay.
so that was big. I didn't have any student loans or anything like that to pay back after school. I had the car that my brother and I shared in high school through like my third year teaching, and then stuff got real because I totaled it and needed to buy a new car, and it was a lemon, so then needed a different car, and
And you have not had good luck with cars.
and I just I have not. I really haven't. Like that, unfortunately they were all Volkswagens like that I had issues with, and I kept going back to that well. So
Gotcha.
I don't know if I could blame luck or I finally smartened up and got out of the Volkswagens, but yeah. So that was, I was working a lot, like color guard and side gigs and marching band, and so but no, I did not have debt. I had one good credit card and a debit card, paid it off every month. Cable bill, electric bill, nothing too crazy. Like this was before, guys, this was 2012. Subscription services, like we got Netflix DVDs in the mail.
And that's how young you are. Netflix didn't exist for me when I got my first place.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. No smartphones, no bills for that. Like it was, it was a little simpler when we, first started teaching. So,
yes.
The some of the things that are floating out there that you really, got to keep an eye on, like just one click signing up for those subscription services. That wasn't really happening for us. But how about you? Where did you come out of school with anything to pay off?
I was fortunate enough to start with a clean slate and no debt. And you know what? For those really for pretty much as long as I've been teaching, I've been very careful about not racking up consumer debt. That means credit card debt and high interest, like personal loans or anything like that. We do have a couple right now. We do have car loans and things like that. Mine's paid off in 2 months. Woohoo!
Oh, you're so close. Okay.
But aside from mortgages and things like that, we don't really have consumer debt, and that's something we've been really working hard to keep that way. And ever since I started teaching, that was really important to me.
Yeah. Same here. That type of debt can really get you stuck. So
yes, it really can. Yeah, it really can. So before we go on, Jen, with the episode, I definitely want to read this from our show notes because you and I are going to be talking about some of our experiences and thoughts. But just for our listeners, to make sure they know, we are not financial experts, financial planners, or advisors. The opinions expressed in this episode are for informational purposes only and are not intended to be personal financial advice. There's an inherent risk involved with financial decisions, and we can't be held liable for the decisions that you may make. So please don't blindly take advice from some randos in a podcast.
Yes. That's
really important to remember. So if you're listening to this and you hear some things that sound good, you definitely want to get those checked out by professionals.
We're just trying to get you thinking about these things. So
So the list that I put together for some of my student teachers, Jen, is kind of all this stuff that I've learned and I know. I put them in the show notes. We've kind of added our own thoughts here as we go through. You kind of want to go through a little step by step here.
I think we should. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. Let's go for it.
I wish I had this when I started teaching. I wish that somebody would have told me about this information.
I don't know how much I would have done differently, but at least I would have, I would have been aware of some of these things, that were kind of getting thrown my way. So, yeah.
Jen, you mentioned just a couple minutes ago that you were starting out teaching and you met this person from the 403B company in your teacher's lounge, and I'm sure they had cookies or maybe free sandwiches or something like that. And they said, "Come, give your money to us, and we will invest it for your future, and it'll be great." That's going to happen a lot.
Oh yeah.
To teachers, you're going to hear about all these people coming and sitting in the faculty lounge who want you to invest with them. You're going to be hearing about long-term disability insurance, whole life insurance, term life insurance, 403bs, 457bs, Roth versions of those, and probably more. So the first thing is to be really important, that I think is really important, is to read very carefully anything you're considering and consult a financial professional. Something that you may not realize is that the people who come to your school to talk to you are not always fiduciaries. And if you don't know what that means, it means that they are people who are legally bound to do what is in your best interest financially. A lot of times, the people that come and try to give you these products are salespeople, and they are not fiduciaries.
Right.
So they're going to give you ideas that may help, but also may be in their own best interest as well.
Right. So, when you sign on for some of these things, just know that these people are probably going to make something off of you signing up. That I'm sure they want you to do well, but there's some kind of commission attached there usually. So
yeah, most of the time with school districts, when it comes to retirement accounts and things like this, your district will have a list of approved vendors. Definitely look through the list. And we're going to talk about those in a little bit, but there are definitely better ones out there and not so great ones out there as far as the money that you'll be paying in terms of commissions and hidden fees and the money that you're going to be able to keep and invest. So we'll get that in a little bit. The other thing that people may not realize is you may not need a financial advisor right away, especially if your situation is not particularly complicated. Oftentimes, financial advisors will charge 1% or even 2% of what's called assets under management, or AUM. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but that fee can end up taking a big chunk out of your investments over time. So it's definitely important that if you do decide to consult a financial advisor, you want to use what's called a fee-only financial advisor. And if you don't have an idea where to find one, you can go to www.xyplanningnetwork.com and find fee only, because some financial planners work under commissions when they sell you products. Fee-only advisors will only take a fee from you, regardless of what you end up doing with them. So some other things, that these are just general things that I talk about with pre-service teachers. If you have high interest loans or credit card debt, pay that off before you start investing.
Yeah.
Your investments in the stock market, I think, generally return about a 7% annual return in the stock market if you're just investing in like the S&P 500 index funds, and your credit card debt may be costing you 20, maybe even 25, 30% of that. So investing and hoping to get a 7% return while you're paying 20 to 25%, it's not going to add up in your favor.
Yeah. And I've heard, people say, oh, it's just the cost of borrowing money. It's just that, but like some of that interest is compounding, some of that, like that, those are aggressive rates on your money. So,
Yes.
Be very, very careful about those things and pay them off as quickly as possible.
If you're in high interest debt, some good places to start are two that I recommend are The Money Guy, and you can search, you can Google that, and Dave Ramsey. Now, I have some other thoughts about Dave Ramsey after getting out of debt, but for getting out of debt, he's got a great system, and as do The Money Guy. So I definitely want to check those out. Don't do any investing, anything like that, until you've got your high interest debt paid off.
How do you feel about like savings? So like between, the difference between like savings and, your investments and everything, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, what do you do or what do you want to do for savings?
Well, it really depends, I think, on a person's individual situation. Now, I'm just going to talk about it like from my own, like if I were in the particular situation that you're referring to. Everybody's different. But some say save $1,000 and then pay off all your high interest debt. That doesn't include, by the way, like mortgage debt, or if you have like a car loan at like 1% or something like that. But definitely have something that I think basically if you're listening to The Money Guy, which I love, checking out The Money Guy, I think they have a fantastic system, worth checking out for all of our listeners. But what they basically say is have enough to cover your highest deductible on your insurance. So if your highest car insurance deductible is $500, then $500 is what you should save, and then get rid of your debt, like aggressively pay down your debt. After that, I think a lot of people generally say between 3 and 6 months of expenses. Now that means like if you were to lose your job, what expenses would you have? Because like I know we go out to eat, and that's in our budget. But if we lost our jobs, I wouldn't go out to eat anymore. So I wouldn't count that as an expense. But 3 to 6 months is generally what is said. And as you get closer to retirement, you may want to have 9 months, 12 months, or even 24 months of expenses saved as you go into retirement. But this is generally for younger folks like us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So young. So youthful.
But as with everything, it's personal. It's based on your situation. It also is what you feel comfortable having. Some people may feel comfortable with 3 months, and some people may not feel comfortable until they hit at least 6 months. So, so it's really, that's how that answers your question. Do you agree, Jen?
I do agree. 3 months, I feel pretty good about that. But more than that would be nice. But, I like that idea about, your highest insurance deductible, and then just hit that any other debt you have hard. So, yeah.
And no, I'm not going to talk about matching like 401k, 403b matching, because I think it's so rare in terms of the teaching world.
Yeah.
But a lot of, the money guy would say, okay, after you've paid off your high interest debt, you want to make sure that you are investing enough to get your company's match. Now, if your school for some reason doesn't match, then you want to do that because it's free money.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to touch too much on that because I think most of us are probably not in that situation.
Yeah,
I know I'm not.
No, I am not. So,
one thing that a lot of people, especially like I wish I had learned about when I was in my 20s and just starting out, was something called financial independence. Now, most people think about financial independence as when they hit their retirement age, 62, 65, and being able to live off your assets. But if that's something that you may not want to work all the way until you're 62, 65, whatever your state says is the retirement age, you may want to start looking at how you can move that date earlier. So something that you need to keep in the back of your mind, it's generally accepted that you'll need 25 times your annual expenses, of course, minus any pension income or anything like that, to be able to retire on investment income alone. Generally, a 4% withdrawal rate adjusted for inflation is considered safe. So that means that if your expenses per year are $40,000, then you need to have $1 million invested, which sounds like a lot. But you put away a lot and compound interest, you can get there. Definitely something that is possible. But yeah, so those are just kind of like some of the general thoughts that I give my student teachers. Any other general thoughts to add, Jen?
No, those are some good highlights. It's hard because everybody's situation is different, but we're all kind of looking as teachers at that timeline, right? How many years of service do I feel like I can do? How many do I want to do? How many does my state require to get that full pension? If I don't end up making it to that full pension, what do I need to, what do I need to bank? What do I need to put, invest? And I think we all have the same questions. So even though our situations might be very different, personally, but we all have that kind of goal line in front of us. So
for sure. I know in New Jersey, for instance, my age to retire with no penalty as far as the pension is age 62, and I'm currently 44. I started teaching 21 years ago.
Right.
At this point, I can't imagine going all the way to age 62, another 18 years. But you know what? In 10 years, I might feel differently.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, for me, it's 60. Yeah, I'm tier 2 here in New Jersey. So
I'm tier 4.
Right. So
Yikes.
is Tom.
So I thought I'd jump down a little on the list here because we were talking about debt and credit cards and things like that. So I'm going to jump down to the credit card section. I know it's a little out of order as far as our notes go, but so here are some things that I've learned about credit cards. And I actually didn't even really use a credit card until I was, in my late 30s. There are ways to use credit cards responsibly that can actually help you out and can, get you some rewards. But we'll get into that. So the first thing that you need to know about credit cards is don't ever carry a balance, because like we talked about, those interest rates are predatory. They are high. You're paying 20% plus per year to be able to carry a balance on that credit card. Just don't do it. And it compounds. So if your balance is $1,000 and you hold that for a year, that means now your balance that you're paying interest on is, let's say you have a 20% interest rate. That means now your balance is $1,200 that you're paying interest on, and it keeps compounding. Right. So yes, don't carry a balance. Pay the full statement balance on the due date. Don't pay it earlier. Don't pay it in portions throughout the month. That actually helps increase your credit score.
Right. And and I've heard people say like, oh, if you carry a balance, like it'll raise your credit score, like it'll go up. It's like, no, pay it off. Just pay it off.
Along the line of like loans and credit cards, don't take payday loans. Payday loans can be even more predatory in terms of their interest. One thing that I know, the money guys say is if you can't stop carrying a balance, credit cards are not for you. Use debit cards, checks, cash, things that take the money out of your account immediately. Don't use credit cards. They're not for everybody. No. So if you're the kind of person who just can't seem to pay that balance off every month, don't use them. Also, buy now, pay later options. I always say if you can't pay for it now, you can't afford it. And if you do use a buy now, pay later option, be aware this often opens up a ghost card in your name, which increases your, we can talk about credit, building your credit. It increases your credit utilization rate that banks use to approve you for car loans, mortgages, things that you really need. I know one time way back, I did a buy now, pay later situation where I got a cell phone, and it was like 24 months, no interest. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I don't have to pay it off now. So I said, yes, I want to do it. And you know what showed up on my credit report was a credit card in the cell phone manufacturer's, name. So it showed up as a credit card on my account, even though I had no card, and it was just for that phone.
Right.
So now you've got a new credit card opened up in your name, which can decrease your credit score. So
we ran into the same thing recently, like home repair, large home repair. Home Depot does the thing with their credit card, 18 months, don't have to pay it off, this and that, or whatever it is. And Tom was like, wait, I have a Home Depot credit card? I'm like, that's how we did that thing for the house. It's like that's an actual credit card. And he's like, what? So.
And the thing is, like if that's helpful to you, just go into it with your eyes open. Know that that's going to now have another credit card on your account that may, decrease your credit score at least, for the time being. And if you know that going in and you're okay with that, then great. Yeah. Sometimes you got to replace that water heater, and if you don't have the cash, you can't have cold water. Right. So you do what you have to do, but just be aware, when you do some of those buy now, pay later things, you may end up with a credit card in your name you didn't even notice, you didn't even know about.
Right.
Now on the flip side of that, and this is something I really enjoy, it's called travel hacking, and that is for people who are good with credit cards, who don't carry a balance. There are ways to get a lot of those credit card points that everybody wants, and use them for travel and things like that. I guess I could do a whole other episode on that because that's a hobby of mine. I don't know about you, Jen. Do you try to hack those credit card points?
I don't go too crazy. I have a couple cards that do, cash back and this and that, but I don't really, I did my latest one, I did start kind of messing around with using it for travel, and I was like, oh, I paid $80 for this $500 hotel room. That was kind of nice, it's nice to use for travel. It's just when it's just those points are just sitting there. So
it is. And unless you're like, kind of want to sit in front of a spreadsheet like me and try to maximize that, just having a couple credit cards, for if you do a lot of shopping on Amazon or at Whole Foods, there's the Amazon Prime card, which gets you 5% back on your purchases at Whole Foods and Prime. It doesn't cost you anything per year. That's a great one. Then there's the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which is a great travel card that only costs $95 a year, but you can get a lot of use out of that. So
yeah, I'm a fan of Discover Card. Their fraud protection and everything has been really good
nice.
Over the years, and their cashback it is what it says it is. Like, it's no like, oh, you gotta trade it in for this or that, and this, you don't have to convert it to anything. It's just cash. So that is kind of easy about some of those cashback things. It's just cash. So,
but again, and I'm going to steal this phrase from the money guy, and that is credit card debt, no way. Credit card use, okay.
Well, it's catchy.
If you're getting into debt using your credit cards, cut them up, throw them away. If you can pay off that balance every month, then you certainly can use those to your advantage.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. There's a great website, by the way, if you really want to get into travel hacking. It's called 10xtravel.com. And we're going to link all of these links and everything, all these resources in the show notes. The show notes are going to be long on this episode, but we're going to put all those links in there. They have a great online course about how you can, it's not really gaming the system because you're using the system in all the ways that it's designed, but you can really maximize your credit card points that way.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So credit. When I started out teaching and living on my own, I had no credit because I had no credit cards. I had no debt, basically nothing.
Yeah.
So I didn't exist. And it was really hard to get a credit card at that point. So one thing that I don't know if you know about this, Jen, I only learned about this not too long ago. And that is, if you're just getting started and you're, and your parents have really good credit and they're paying all their bills, every month and making sure it doesn't even honestly have to be your parents. It can be guardian, somebody that you really trust.
Yeah.
You can have them add you as an authorized user on their oldest credit card. And then their history on that card becomes your credit history as well.
I had just read that recently too. I did not know that was something you could do until I think it literally was this morning that I was reading that somewhere, and I was like, "Whoa, that's really interesting."
And they'll get a card that has your name on it, but they don't have to give it to you,
right?
That it's just to get that credit history started.
Yeah.
And again, it has to be somebody that you trust is going to be making their payments, because if that person doesn't make their payments, then that also becomes your credit history. Those missed payments become your credit history. So it's got to be somebody that, like a parent or a guardian who has very good credit on a particular card.
Right.
Have them add you as an authorized user. That's a great way to get started. Also, if you don't know how your credit is doing, you can keep an eye on all 3 of your credit reports. There are 3 credit bureaus in the United States, 3 main bureaus, and that's called they're Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And you can get a free report from each of those credit bureaus every year at annualcreditreport.com. You can also use a free service like Credit Karma to view some of those reports.
Yeah.
And see and make sure. Look, what happens sometimes is that people don't realize that there are mistakes on their credit reports. There will be missed payments on there that you didn't miss, or maybe even somebody opened a credit card in your name,
right? And
you didn't even know it. And then they never paid those bills, and now that's showing up on your credit report.
Right.
So it's really important to to keep up on that and make sure that credit report it basically tells the banks how responsible you are with debt. And so when you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, it's really important to have a good credit score, because your interest rates will be higher the lower your score is.
Right. Tom and I had different credit scores when we started trying to buy a house together. And it was like we both bought scooters like after college graduation, like 49 cc's, like scooters. In Connecticut, you don't need a motorcycle license. Here in New Jersey, you do. So we bought scooters up in Connecticut.
Awesome, Jen. I love it. I want to imagine you guys riding your scooters around Connecticut.
It was so cool. You
guys are the coolest.
Oh, we were so cool. Both are sitting dead in our parents' garages right now. Both of those scooters, like they don't start. Our parents are like, so when is this getting out of here? I'm working on it. Okay. So, but some of us realized it was an actual auto loan and some of us didn't. So when Tom and I went to go buy a house, one of us had some serious mispayments and, on this, and it was a real ding to the credit score. I'm not saying it was Tom, but it was Tom. And he said I could share this story. But he said I could share the story and, tell everybody a cautionary tale. It's that, they said, pay it off. Sure, I'll pay it off. Yeah, that got a little squirrely, and it did mess with our credit and our buying power. What we could do for an interest rate, and when we went to rent a place, and it really does affect things. So
it really does. Yes, that's a really good point. Even when you go to rent a place, even if you're not buying a place yet, they will often run your credit score.
Yep, definitely.
And see, they may have a minimum credit score requirement for you to be able to rent their place, and that's really important. That's a really good point too, Jen. I've heard of people that got car loans at 15% interest rate.
Wow.
Because their credit score was so low.
Right.
And I mean, you're paying a ton of interest when somebody with a good credit score may be at 4 or 5%. So like a 15% car loan is terrible. Yeah. It's just terrible. So if they tell you it's 15%, don't be like, well, I guess that's what car loans are. They are not. Your credit score is bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they tried to sell me on something like that when I went to purchase the car I have, because I didn't have the cash in hand for the down payment. I had to move some things around. And they're like, oh, well, you can drive it off the lot today if you pay 16%. If you your payment is $600 a month, and the interest rate is 16%, and they're like, but when you get the cash, like you come back and we'll refinance it. And I was like, what are you going? I'm like, geez, I'm a fully formed adult, and you're like trying to pitch me this crazy thing.
Wow.
It was really wacky. Like they'll try and get you, any way when they want to sell you something. So, I was like, no, I'll give you a deposit and you can hold the car for me, and I'll come back, with the down payment.
And that's for somebody with good credit. So just be aware when you're out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, we don't even need to run your credit for this rate. Like, we'll take care. Like, and I'm like, huh?
They don't need to run your credit for that rate, because that's the worst rate.
That's the worst thing you could, that was not a fun day. So,
but the thing is, Jen, if you were a brand new teacher, someone who's just got out on their own, maybe you don't have financially savvy adults around you, parents, guardians, and things to help guide you with that. Yeah. You may just think that's the option.
Right.
You wouldn't know enough to be like, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Now we're here to tell you.
Right. Don't take that loan. It's not. Yep. And, when you go to refinance it, they might not do much better for you than that 15% because you took it the first time. So, yeah.
So regarding transportation, that's another heading we have on our notes here, Jen.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going. Let's talk about cars, because cars are expensive. And that's something that most of us need to be able to get to our jobs. And, they are necessary. And if you live in a city or something like that with great, robust public transportation, maybe you don't have to, or you just love taking Ubers. I don't know. But most of us, most teachers are going to need some sort of reliable transportation to be able to get to our job and to be able to pay those bills.
Yeah.
It's a really important thing to make sure that you're doing it the right way. Now, trusting the money guy, their rule of thumb on this, and I wish that somebody would have told me this 20 years ago, is always pay 20% down, finance no longer than 3 years, and your total household car payments or automobile expenses should not be more than 8% of your gross household income.
Okay.
And for a lot of people, even making decent salaries, that means a used car.
Right. Yeah.
And, a reliable used car, a Toyota, a Honda, something like that. But that's designed to make sure, one, you're not underwater. In other words, you owe more than the car's worth because cars depreciate very quickly.
Right.
For those people who may not know that, your car value is going to go down very quickly after you buy it, especially if it's new.
Yeah.
So 20% down ensures that you stay above water. Financing for no longer than 3 years makes sure that you are staying ahead of that, and you're not taking this out to 5, 6, 7, 8 years on a particular automobile. And then your total household automobile expenses shouldn't be more than 8% of your gross household income. So, and gross means before taxes.
Right.
Gross is for anybody that's listening who may not know that terminology. So they call that the 23-8 rule. And I think it's a great rule to try to follow. So, yeah.
The paying it off in 3 years thing, I know is kind of tough for some people, having that cash every month to put towards that payment. But no, that's great advice. The money down is like a huge thing.
So Jen, any more comments on cars and debt and things like that, or you want to move on to more of the fun stuff here?
Oh, let's get into the fun stuff, like
continuing education.
Oh, hey, yeah, there you go. Oh my goodness. I don't
know what says fun like continuing education credits.
Yeah, they told us in undergrad, don't go back for your master's until somebody else is paying for it.
Yes.
And I like that. That really works. I was lucky enough that my first district paid for half of what I was doing, but I got a lot of credits pretty fast. They would have paid for the whole thing if I did it at half the speed. Sure. If I had done 6 or 8 credits a year rather than 12, they would have taken care of the whole thing. So,
and the flip side of that, I think, is if you have a district that's going to pay for it, do it now.
That's right.
I wish I would have done it 15 years before I did. And gotten over, especially if your district is going to cover some or all of those continuing education costs, and that your salary increases with more education.
Right.
Your district is paying for your salary to increase.
Yeah, it's true.
It just takes time. It just takes time, especially if you don't have a lot else going on outside of school. If you're not a high school band director doing marching band and jazz bands and pit orchestras and stuff like that, you're middle school, you're elementary, you don't have kids, taking up your time. Maybe you're doing some private lessons outside of school, but like this is definitely worth making making time for.
Yeah. Take care of that stuff. While you don't have all those other burdens and things going on.
Yes. And it just compounds because now in New Jersey, at least we have guides which have columns and steps. Steps are basically more or less how many years you've been working, and the columns are how much continuing education you have. So the sooner you get over on those columns, the sooner you're just making more every year than you would otherwise. Yep. So something I wish I would have done 10, 15 years earlier is just get over on the guide as soon as possible.
Same. And don't get in your head about it. I said to myself, I don't have enough experience to have a master's. Why am I going to go do that now? And I don't have the experience to, no, you do. You want to get paid. Go get your master's. You have plenty of experience. You have something to say in your 3rd, 4th, 5th year. Just go get it.
And I did run the numbers on this for our listeners just to prove a point here, Jen. And that is if your salary, I just did an example off the top of my head. If your salary increases even just $2,500 a year from moving over on that guide, after 30 years of teaching, that's $75,000 saved. Now that doesn't sound like a lot. That's assuming you take that $2,500 and invest it, right? So $75,000, that's a nice chunk of change. It takes 30 years to get there. But if every paycheck invested that into an ETF, which is an electronically traded fund, they're just very cheap funds, essentially, like an S&P 500 fund. It tracks the S&P 500, which generally gets a 7% return annually for 30 years. That $2,500 a year that you ended up making and saving and investing could turn into over $266,000 over 30 years. So you've saved $75,000, but that's grown to $266,000. Right. And if you waited 10 years and then, and then started saving that $2,500, you'd have $52,500 saved and invested. It would only be $115,000. That's less than half what it would have been if you had done it for 30 years instead of 20, which is wild.
those are big numbers. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. That's like college. That's like college for one of your kids,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or, if you're thinking about that 4% rule, the 25 times your annual expenses, that $266,000 could turn to over $10,000 a year of income in your retirement, which is wild.
We started to mention this before, but I do want to say, like, you gotta watch your salary guide a little bit. There's not a whole lot you can do about it, but if you're where I was and kind of in a real valley in the salary guide, it's worth considering moving districts. You're gonna you hold yourself back a little bit by just being like, oh, eventually I'll get to the top.
I totally agree, Jen. I've changed districts now 1, 2, 3 times. It was not because of money every time. But I can tell you that it doesn't hurt when you go to a district and you've been from a district with a lower salary guide and you move to a district with a higher salary guide. It can make a difference, especially when you look at that every single year. It's okay to get out there and like send your resume out and just say, please don't contact my employer until you're ready to hire me.
Yeah. Most people honor that. They will.
Yeah.
So it's worth a look. It's worth looking around.
So, Jen, we had talked about insurance earlier in the show, and I know this is a very sexy, exciting topic.
But gosh.
Of course, as we mentioned at the beginning, you should always talk to professionals about this. We are not professionals. We're randos on the internet.
Yes, we are.
So here are my thoughts on insurance, because you're going to have a lot of options. And insurance may seem a little expensive, especially when you're starting out, but there are definitely times where it's really important. For instance, like if you're single and living at home, you don't really have many assets, things like that. In insurance, you may not need a whole lot of disability insurance or life insurance at that point, because you don't have a lot to protect, and that's okay. But one type of insurance that I didn't find out about until I was in my 40s was something called umbrella insurance or liability insurance. And that is, it's an insurance that basically protects you in case you are sued by somebody who injures themselves because of something you did or didn't do. For instance, like if I'm on a gig and I have my saxophone stand out and a patron walks by, trips, breaks their leg, and they decide that they want to sue me. Now, because I have umbrella insurance, if they sue me and win, my insurance company is going to pay them out. Umbrella insurance is so cheap. I think mine's like $300 a year. It's really something worth looking at, especially if you're out there and you have assets like a house or you have investments, because people can come after that if they sue you and they win. Also, if you're like doing gigs, stipends, side hustles, things like that, where you're kind of out there as your own, you're just like on your own as like not as an employee, definitely something to look into.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't really consider that much.
Never heard of it until I was in my 40s. Glad I have it now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, that's good.
So other kinds of insurance. So if you're paying rent or a mortgage, some level of disability insurance may be appropriate. I don't know about other states, but I know in New Jersey, we do not get state disability insurance. Teachers do not get state disability insurance. That means that if you have 20 sick days saved up, and you have you end up becoming disabled and not able to work because you have an injury or mental health situation. Once you get done with those 20 days, you're not making any money. Your paycheck stops.
That's it.
And if you have disability insurance can cover that loss of wages while you recover. Every plan is different, and there's lots of things like that. So if you're not one of those people with like hundreds of sick days banked up, because you've been teaching for 30 years or something like that, if you don't have that, disability insurance can really save you. It can even cover the birth of a child as you're out doing maternity leave. It can cover that. A lot of those plans just have a set chunk of money that they pay out once you become pregnant and you're out for the maternity. They just give you this chunk of money. So definitely worth looking into. If you had any experience with that, Jen?
I did. I signed up for my disability insurance before I got pregnant, thinking it was a good time. And then, different circumstances happened, changed jobs twice, this and that, it carried through. It stayed. When I changed employers, it was through through Prudential, through the state. Like, it stayed with me. But I ended up paying into it quite a while before, getting to that return on it through like a maternity leave, and I ended up paying for it like way more than what I got out of it. But that peace of mind is pretty good. You have to watch when you sign up versus when you get pregnant, because within a certain time frame they won't pay out if you sign up too close, or
Yeah, you can't sign up. You can't sign up in July knowing that you're already pregnant.
It
doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So now, if you have that safety net, like we said, of living at home and everything, you might not need to cover your housing. You might not feel you need to pay into something like that.
Sure.
At that time, I was thinking of getting it for myself again, because after a maternity leave, I've only been in Livingston, I guess this is my 7th year. But after maternity leave and all the illnesses here and there and COVID, and different things, I only had six sick days at the end of last year. So
wow.
Yeah, now I have 6 plus whatever was added for this school year. But that's not much. That's like a week and a day. If I, had an accident and couldn't come to work. So, I was actually considering going back to that just for peace of mind, but,
sure. I want to say Cindy and I each pay like $60 maybe out of our paychecks, each.
Yeah.
And I mean, while that's not nothing, I mean, like you said, the peace of mind is worth it, I think. Yeah. And you never know. It's not just for getting pregnant. You could fall and break your leg and have to recover for 2 months.
Right.
Our listeners might have a situation like that. It even can cover mental health leave. If you need to be hospitalized for mental health issues, that it can cover your expenses. So it's a really good thing. And I'm glad we have it. And, anytime I have a student teacher, I always recommend, like, when you start working, especially because you're going to have so few sick days.
So few.
If you're renting or or you have a mortgage, something like that, you definitely want to be able to pay those bills. Yeah. Especially if you're living alone and you can't survive on, a spouse's or a significant other's salary. This is the one that I get into conversations with about my colleagues because we're really fun.
Okay.
And that is term life insurance versus whole life insurance.
Oh, wow. You guys are a hoot.
Yeah, I know. We're really fun. But I will tell you this. If you're married or you have kids, term life insurance may be appropriate.
Okay.
They come in different terms. In other words, you may be covered for 30 years, 20 years, you pay for that entire time. And then hopefully you never use it.
Right.
That's kind of the point of insurance, right? Is you pay for it, you hope you never need it.
Right.
But the idea is that if you have a $500,000 life insurance policy and you die, that your beneficiary will get that $500,000. And the thing about term life insurance is it doesn't last forever. The idea is that at a certain point you won't need it.
Right.
Your house will be hopefully paid off. If you have kids, hopefully they'll be adults and on their own and won't need that money to continue supporting them.
Right.
Your spouse will hopefully be able to, your surviving spouse will be able to live on their own. So the idea is that it only covers you as long as you might need it. Because of that, it's fairly inexpensive, especially when you consider that compared to whole life insurance, which is permanent and costs quite a bit more per month. The other thing is you can add to it later and stack it as you go through. So yeah, definitely want to talk to a professional about this. I know NEA member benefits through Prudential, very cheap, especially if you get it young.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty inexpensive if you get it right away. And, like here in New Jersey, you do get a certain amount. You just have to like go and opt in and everything with paying next to nothing. But yeah, to add to that, they have it's really not very expensive. So
no.
Yeah.
And the thing is with whole life insurance, people, say, well, I want to be covered for my whole life. Well, the idea is at a certain point, you're not going to need it.
Right.
And to be covered for that whole life, we're talking, $40 a month versus several $100s a month,
Right.
For that. And there are investment vehicles. Oh, well, I'm paying this money into that, and then it's getting invested in the stock market, and I can take a portion of that out or something like that. But the truth is, at least from my experience and what a lot of professionals will say, is that it's way better if you have that $250 a month to pay on whole life insurance, get the term life insurance for $40, and then invest that $210 in your retirement fund,
Right.
or in some sort of fund, so that your investments stay investments and that your insurance stays insurance, and they're both doing their own jobs instead. Also, that whole life insurance, depending on the policy, can have a very hefty commission for the person who's trying to sell it to you.
Okay.
So if you're planning on some kind of whole life insurance, definitely do your research. Look it up, Google it, do a lot of reading, and make sure that this is something that really is appropriate for you, and not just something that somebody is trying to sell you because they're making a lot of money off of it.
Yeah. And if, if you are just, getting into your career, and you have to put your beneficiaries on certain things as you start, like check in on those every once in a while. Go and make sure your spouse is on there after you're already married for 2 years. Oops. And then, make
Yes. No, it's really important.
No, you really should. You gotta, to log into that system, it's a password and a username and this and that, but you gotta click through it and find where that page is, and just double check on those things every once in a while, because you forget how quickly, circumstances in your life change, and you just every year or so, you just want to check that you have the right people in the right places where you want them. So
yeah. The last piece of insurance advice that I have on the list, Jen, is renter's insurance. And this is quick. If you're renting, it shouldn't be a question. Get renter's insurance. It's super cheap, and it covers your things. You should know that your landlord's insurance policy, most likely does not cover anything inside of the walls, floor, and ceilings, aka your stuff. Yep. So if you have a fire, or if there's a fire if you're in a multi-unit dwelling, and the person next to you has a fire and your stuff burns down, your landlord's insurance policy is not going to cover your stuff, most likely.
Yeah. And make sure that it does, it is very inexpensive, but make sure it does, include the value of your instruments. So if you're carrying around a $10,000 instrument, you just make sure you're covered for everything that, especially your instruments.
Now, here's something. I'm really glad you talked about instrument insurance. I'm putting it on our list right now.
Yeah.
Because I totally forgot about this. Something that you should know is that if you're using your instruments for professional purposes, aka you're getting paid, like if you're doing private lessons, or you're going out and you're playing pits or things like that you're getting paid for, your insurance policy might not cover your instruments.
Right.
Because it's considered a business asset and not your personal property. So if you are doing that, I highly recommend instrument insurance. I've got all this stuff. I've got instrument insurance. I've got umbrella insurance. I've got, I'm insured like crazy. But it's all really important. Instrument insurance covers instruments that you're using professionally. And again, it's not super expensive, but it's definitely worth the peace of mind.
Yeah.
If it gets stolen, if there's a fire, if there's a flood.
Yeah. I definitely carried instrument insurance for a long time. Now the value of my instrument has decreased enough that I've kind of let it go. But I definitely was carrying that for a long time. It's worth it.
The one that I use, Jen, is called Music Pro.
Okay.
And we'll link to it in the show notes along with all the other ones. And the nice thing is if you're a classical musician, aka you're not going out there and playing like rock gigs. So it can include, like Broadway style pit music, orchestral gigs, things like that. It's like half the price of if you're going out to bars and you're playing, it can be a little more expensive, if you're in a rock band. But if you're just a classical musician doing classical gigs, it can be fairly cheap. Okay. So Jen, you and I are a little far off from this.
Yeah.
But are you ready to talk about it? Retirement.
Retirement. Oh, I thought you were going to say bedtime, and I was like, oh, okay, retirement. Yes, we could talk retirement.
This is a long episode, so thank you, listeners, for staying with us. There's a lot to be discussed in this topic,
there is.
Retirement's important, especially even if you're just starting out. This is something that you definitely want to be thinking about, because you may not want to teach for 45 years,
right?
Or now you may want to, but 20 years from now, you may feel differently.
Sorry.
You may want to, you want to have options. And that financial independence that we talked about earlier is definitely something to keep on the back of your mind. Now, I learned this the other day. If you want to become financially independent, all it takes is investing half your income for 15 years.
Oh,
that's it.
That's all.
Yep. That's all. No big deal. But if you're not interested in becoming financially independent in 15 years,
okay,
then there are some other good ideas here even still. So retirement investing. The first thing that our listeners should know is that regular investing is actually taxed twice. You're getting taxed on it when you make the money, and then you're getting taxed on it again if that money grows, and then you take it out and you withdraw it. That's called capital gains. So you're actually getting taxed on what you put in, and you're getting taxed on what you take out. There are several ways that people who are working can invest in ways that lower the amount of taxes that they pay. And they're totally legit. Like, this is not hiding income or anything like that. It's using the tax code in the United States as it was intended. So there are ways of supplementing your retirement income if your state employer has a pension plan, or funding your entire retirement if you have no pension. Some states have no pension. So you're going to have to fund your retirement. And that is no easy task, especially where we live in New Jersey, but really in most places in the United States. So the nice thing is that you can somehow direct how your money is invested, depending on which company administers your retirement accounts. So there are some things called annuities, mutual funds, stocks, electronically traded funds, which are called ETFs. I've talked about those a couple of times, and more. There are different vehicles for investing in those different types of investments. And the most popular one, I would say, is called the 403B. It's named after Section 403B of the Tax Code of the United States of America. And it's like a 401k for public sector employees. A 403B is investment vehicle, allows you to contribute money from your paycheck before taxes are taken out. So it actually lowers your taxable income as you're working. But you will be taxed on distributions when you begin to take your money out in retirement if your money has grown. So you get taxed on the growth of that particular of those investments. Now, there are also things called the Roth 403B, which is an investment vehicle that allows you to contribute money from your paycheck after the taxes are taken out, but it allows your investment to grow tax-free until you're retired, until you hit retirement age. So that means all those gains are not taxed when you take them out. So there's two different ways of doing this. I'm not going to get into the details of which one you should do when. Generally, for most teachers, it's going to be the Roth. The interesting thing about 403Bs is you have the money is available to withdraw penalty-free after age 59 and a half, or if you separate service from your employer during or after the year you turn 55. Something that I've learned is that you need to be careful not to invest with high-cost providers or choose expensive investments like annuities or mutual funds from other brokers. In other words, if you're investing with Fidelity, but you buy Vanguard funds, you may be paying extra to be able to buy those Vanguard funds. I like Fidelity and Vanguard. They tend to be very inexpensive brokers. You can self-direct your money. One thing you need to know is that when you put your money into your 403B, you need to tell them how to invest it. There are definitely times where people that I know have looked at their investments and said, I've been investing for 10 years. Why has this not grown? And the answer is because it's been sitting in cash for 10 years. It was never actually invested in any investments. other than cash. Cash is an investment. It's just not a very good one. So at least while we're working, it's not a very good investment. So definitely want to make sure that not only are you putting money into those 403Bs, but you're also directing it where to be invested. Most people will do really well just investing it in a low-cost index fund like VTI or FSKAX. Those are either total stock market funds or S&P 500 index funds, and they're very cheap, and they basically track the stock market or the S&P 500. So again, you should definitely talk about this with professionals, not us. We're randos on the internet.
Yep.
But these are things that I've learned and have helped me over time.
Yeah.
Now, Jen, there's also something that our district participates in, and it's somewhat newer. It's called the 457B. They are like 403Bs, except you can withdraw your money penalty-free upon separating service at any age. There's also Roth options for 457Bs sometimes. Okay. So that means you don't have to hit retirement age or 59 and a half or separate service from your employer 55.
Okay. That's cool.
Not everybody has those, but they have regular, traditional, and they have Roth as well.
Mm-hmm. Great.
That are out there. Now, did you know this, Jen, that you may be able to max out each account, aka a 403B and a 457B?
I did know you can max those out, but both. I did know that you could max them both out. Yeah, that's
the United
cool.
States government does have a limit on how much you can put in each of those accounts. For the year 2024, when we're recording this, that's $23,000 for each account. But that's each account, which means that you could be putting aside $46,000 every year of your money toward your retirement in a 403B and a 457. Also, if you have a spouse, that means you could do that 4 times. Yeah. Now, I can tell you for sure we are not, but it is a possibility.
All right. You're not banking half of your income to try and get out in 15 years and just... No. Okay. No.
One thing I will tell you, though, is if, our listeners are, Jen, you and I are in the same situation. We both married teachers. Yeah. But there are people who are listening to this or who are going to have spouses that maybe make a much higher salary. Mm-hmm. If you can live off your spouse's salary alone and you can put your entire salary into your retirement funds, you might be able to max out both of those retirement funds at $46,000 every year. Right. So, for us, it's not most likely going to happen, but for some people out there it might. So if you don't have an option for a 403B or a 457 for whatever reason, or you only have high cost options, I'm not going to name any of those, but I will tell you can definitely go to 403bwise.org. Mm-hmm. It's not named after Jen.
I was going to say, I'm not hosting that website. That is not me.
403, the letter B, wise.org. You can check out all the different providers that your district may offer and see which ones are low cost and will be working on your behalf the best. If those options are not good for you, you don't like them, there are also traditional IRA or Roth IRAs. They're good. They have lower annual maximums. There are ways that you can get these accounts for very low costs and not even have to have a financial advisor. You can use robo-advisors like Betterment or Wealthfront. And you can also find low-cost brokerages like Vanguard and Fidelity. They can often help you open those IRAs quickly and easily. But you should also be aware that with the IRAs, not so much with the 403Bs and 457s, is that there's a maximum that you can make every year to still be able to invest in those IRAs. Your adjusted gross income needs to be below a certain threshold, or you can't any longer contribute to your IRA for that year. So if this seems like something you'd like to find out more information about, you can definitely go to the irs.gov website and check it out. All of those limits and everything are there. If you don't know what adjusted gross income is, go look it up and check that out. That might be an option for you as well. So Jen, I put a little note on here is like, why would our listeners want to do this?
You want to do this because like we were mentioning before with your advanced degrees and how that, compounds over time. Like it's the same for this, but like you really need it to sit there a while because it's retirement. So
absolutely. Yeah. So here's I did a couple of just number crunches just to try it out and see how it works. So the stock market typically averages about 7% returns annually. this stock market's been pretty good right now. So it's doing better than 7, but the average is 7%. This means that if you invested $200 a month for 37 years, meaning you taught from age 22 to 59, you'd have put in $88,800 over those 37 years. But your account could grow, and if it's Roth, it would grow tax-free to $419,000 by age 59. And in years 15 to 37, in other words, your salary went up, you decided to start adding more. If you added another $200 a month in years 15 through 37, you could have over $544,000 to supplement your pension, or you could even use it to delay taking your pension payments so your pension payments are higher, if you have a pension, of course, or even give to your heirs when you die. So it's really, really important. And it also could allow you to retire early, earlier than you expected. In New Jersey, if you retire before a certain age, there is a penalty. A certain percentage is taken off of your pension payments for every year before you hit that number, that age. And your retirement accounts might be able to supplement the money that you're losing for that penalty. So allowing you to retire earlier, or to start a new job, to start a new career, or maybe you want to switch from public to private school teaching. Something like that, So there are a lot of options. Again, it's all about options, Jen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
And again, like we said at the beginning, Jen and I are just teachers. We're just music teachers. It's not like we're professionals or anything like this, but all this information is out there. You just have to go looking for it and start thinking about, future you.
Right.
And that's hard to do, especially when you're 22.
It is, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot harder to find some time to sit down and really pick apart your finances and choose the best options. And as important as it is, as the further into your career you get, sometimes it's just harder to really pick this stuff apart. So set yourself up early, find the best stuff out there, and when it changes, don't be afraid to make a change with the market, with a financial advisor, with if something's not working for you, it's your money. Move it. Do something.
Make sure your money's working for you. Yeah, absolutely. One other thing, Jen, and we had talked about this, I realized it's still on the show notes, and I think it's important that is budgeting. Just a couple little quick things from me, and I'm sure you have your own ideas to add here. But especially if you're young, but at any point, if you haven't been budgeting, learn to budget now and stick to it. It's a really important thing, especially when you're not making the kind of money where you don't have to pay attention to it. But for most people that are teachers, you're going to be, you're going to be comfortable, but you're not going to have that kind of flexibility. So budgeting, knowing where your money's coming in, knowing where it's going out is really important. Make saving and investing a part of your budget from day one.
Right.
So that you'll never miss the money. If you get used to living on a certain amount of money per month, and then you're like, well, I'm going to start saving and investing now, that can seem like a cut to what you're used to. If you just start doing it right off the bat, it's just what you're used to.
Yeah. Consider it like self-care, like really just set that aside for future you. Cause, consider it like that. And
I love that, Jen.
It won't hurt that much if you put it away and say I pay this for my gym membership and I pay this for future me.
No, that's a really great way of thinking about it. I love that.
Yeah.
Also, make sure your savings and investments are part of your budget first. The other categories should fit into the puzzle after you've already taken care of that. Now, this may seem like a stretch, and it's always a goal. It's a goal. But the money guy rules, 25% of gross invested, should kind of be invested, 20 to 25%. And you can count your pension toward the 25% if you have a pension.
Yeah.
Money coming up.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a goal.
You can do it. It's you can make it happen. Now, Erik, but you're both teachers. Have you guys opted for the 12-month pay, or do you get paid over 10 months? How do you guys do it?
I'm glad you asked. We, for a long time, we've been paid for 10 months. And I attempt to take the money out of each paycheck and put it in a separate savings account and just pay us over the summer. I've found, even though we're pretty disciplined with our money, I've found that it creates a little bit more sense of anxiety when we know the summer's coming, have we saved enough? Even though we know what we need to put aside, sometimes we would have to dip into it for certain things and put it back. It just got a little bit too crazy. So actually, this year is the first year we've been doing 12-month pay.
Oh, wow.
Which is where the district just takes 10% out of your each paycheck and puts it in an account and then gives it to you over the summer. How is it so far?
Yeah.
Our paychecks are lower,
okay.
Than they were.
Yeah.
Because there's money taken out, but that money's just sitting in a savings account in our names,
Right.
administered by the district.
Okay.
And so far we're okay. We're doing it okay because we would try to take that money out of our paychecks anyway.
Yeah.
Ourselves. Mm-hmm. Now it's just the district doing it on our behalf. What do you do?
We get trapped in a pretty horrible cycle for a while. Like, we get to the summer, we're doing okay. We, go to vacation here in the summer and do, a couple things. And then all of a sudden mid-August comes and there's like a bit of a panic because I'm sure everybody else feels the same pinch that doesn't get paid till September 15th. September 1st, there's the mortgage payment and daycare and, all those beginning of the month expenses, and you don't get your first paycheck until you've been working like pretty much 3 weeks, and that hurts. September hurts. So I end up using the credit cards and paying them off when we get our first paychecks, and then it's just that's kind of been the terrible cycle. But for the fall, we haven't quite figured out the stretching our paychecks for all 12 months yet. But maybe we could both make that change and see, if we could do it. But
sure.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is like, I know at least in Livingston from what I'm told, and that is the paychecks in the summer are a little bit higher. Because they don't have all the deductions taken out, because those deductions are taken out for the 10 months out of the year. So if you can budget 12 months at that lower rate with the deductions, that summer paycheck comes in and you've got a little extra that you weren't expecting, that you weren't budgeting for.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's the case. I'll wait and see. I've just heard it kind of through the grapevine that's how it works in Livingston, and everybody that's listening may have a different situation, but
sure.
But yeah.
Yeah,
we ended up kind of running into the same situation sometimes, Jen.
Yeah.
Is that we'd try to put it aside for the summer, but something would come up, we'd need to dip into it, and we'll put it back in next month, things like that. Like essentially a loan to ourselves.
Right, exactly.
And then so I think we're gonna try it this year and see how it goes.
It all works out. Like there's stipends in the fall, and you pick up certain things in the fall that can kind of make it back. But that we haven't quite figured out the no pay in the summer thing. It does help that Tom's been gigging and playing a lot. That's been really pretty good.
I will say that a budgeting or tracking app is really helpful for people who are setting up a budget or maybe just want to be a little better at keeping their budget tight. I just started using, I don't know, back in March, an app called Monarch Money. Okay. Now it is a paid app, but it's definitely worth it. I find it so easy to track expenses, to set a budget, to move some money around and say, okay, well, we didn't spend as much on groceries this month as we thought we would, but we went a little bit over on clothing. So I'll just move that budget money around. And so you try to get that budget to zero. What's coming in, what's going out. Try to get it to zero. I'll put a link to it in our show notes. So anybody who wants to do it, if you wouldn't mind following that link, I would get a little bit of, a little bit on my side for, you following that link and signing up. But it's totally worth it. I think it's a fantastic app. It's the best I found, and I've tried a bunch. Okay. And I think it's great. So our listeners can definitely check that out for budgeting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we just used a Google Docs. Like one of their templates is like monthly budget, and you put in what you have in the bank, like just what you have in cash, and then there's a sheet for outgoing expenses and incoming money, and it kind of just does it for you. But I like it because like other apps I've used, specifically just the one that I use that's attached to like our investments and everything, I don't have to do much. It just kind of takes what I spent on my credit card, takes what I spent on my debit card, and throws it into a category. It's like, it's another moment where I'm like not actively looking at the numbers,
Okay, sure.
So like actually taking those numbers from my credit card statement and putting them into a spreadsheet, for us, I think was a big step after we bought our first place. Like, Tom had never really done that before. I had done that before, but he was like, wow, that was, he said I could share that today. He's like, yeah, putting it into a spreadsheet was a big deal for me, not just using an app that kind of does it for you. So
yeah, it makes you look at each item. And so you really have an idea where it's going. Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah, and then like how we got blown out of the water once diapers came into the mix. So, but that's fine.
So Jen, this was a great episode. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I wish I've had this episode 20 years ago.
I know, me too. And I said at the beginning, like I'm really happy you have this list for your student teachers. I feel like more of a color commentator today because I have lots of experience, but I'm really glad that you put all this on paper for us and we were able to get talking about it today. So this is cool. Thanks for bringing this one up. So
well, thanks for letting me blab on and on about it. I don't know if our listeners can't tell. It's kind of like a little like side hobby passion of mine is personal finance and trying to get things in the right place.
Yeah.
And that's important. I think a lot of times people go into teaching because they really want to make a difference. And I know that's why you and I went into teaching, but also it's important to remember to take care of yourself. Like you said, it's self-care.
Yeah, definitely.
It is.
Yeah.
So if our listeners are interested in checking out any of the resources, I'm going to put a whole bunch of resources in the notes for this month and some of the stuff we talked about, some of the stuff we did not. Yes. I'll put it in there. And if you really liked this episode, make sure that you subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Make sure you hit that like button, especially if you're listening to YouTube, and leave us a 5-star rating and a great review.
Yeah, please leave us a review. Chime in. We've already dropped a couple things on social media about this episode coming out. So chime in. Let us know what works for you, what doesn't, and with your finances. And we love hearing from you.
Tell others about us.
Yeah.
Tell your friends. Tell
Please.
your band director or non-band director friends. The stuff that we especially talked about today isn't just for music teachers.
No.
It's really for anybody.
Well, thanks again, Erik. Thanks for pulling this together for us.
I've been looking forward to this one for a while, Jen. So thanks for humoring me, and hopefully our listeners get a lot out of it.
This is good. This is great. Okay. Well, let's get out there and make great music.
Yo.